So as some of you may or may not have seen, a YouTuber named HiTop Films made a video saying that the multiverse killed Deadpool and Wolverine and that the movie is disrespectful, blah blah blah. Anyways, I thought this video was really bad, but I'm gonna skip to around the 11-minute mark of his video because that's when he actually starts talking about stuff that I actually care to give a rebuttal to. The beginning of the video is literally just him talking about like the director of the movie, his hopes for the movie, and some other dumb shit that nobody cares about. Maybe he does, maybe his audience does, I don't, so I don't care to talk about that part of the video. Anyways, without further ado, let's begin.
Let's begin.
Wade Wilson fights the MCU and loses, even if he says otherwise. Deadpool jokes about how he's entering the MCU at a bit of a low point. He pokes fun at what's not working about modern Marvel movies. Yet Wade's entire character is completely regressed in service of said terrible Marvel movies. Deadpool, the guy who was completely driven by his idea of love in the first film, completely motivated by the loss of love and the need to save another abused outsider from turning ugly, turning broken like him in his second film. That same character, that same guy, all of the sudden feels such rejection at the idea that he cannot be an Avenger, that he cannot be accepted into the club, that he deteriorates, he shuts down, causing him to lose the one person that helped give him his heroism. All because he is rejected by the corporate overlords, the Tony Starks. He gives up on being Deadpool to work as a car salesman. He needs the approval of Mr. Paradox, Mr. Feige in order to keep his home. I get the meta commentary, man, trust me, I get it. I understand the whole idea of his world collapsing since Logan died is a giant commentary on the fact that without Hugh Jackman, the X-Men movies, the Fox universe would never have made the cultural dent that it did. Mr. Paradox, Disney, by all means, is the villain. The TVA is the clear stand-in for the apathetic monopoly that wishes to just keep the iconography and box office potential of Deadpool, yet take away everything that makes him Wade Wilson, that gives him his heart. Great idea. Problem is, they never fully commit to that idea because at the end of the day, this is a movie financed, approved, and made by the very thing that the film's central plot revolves around criticizing. So of course there needs to be some fanboying on Deadpool's part. Of course Wade still needs to want to be an Avenger because if he spent the entire time roasting how soulless and cynical the MCU has become, we might actually start to take him seriously. We might actually believe it. Making him an Avengers reject is the easiest, lamest fast track to reconnect the general public to the character. Oh wow, we love Captain America, so Wade must as well. Oh wow, we want him to be in the Avengers, wouldn't that be so fun? Wouldn't he be so funny? So he wants that as well. Problem is, this is the guy, the character who literally said, fuck the X-Men, I'm killing this abuser in Deadpool 2.
Those guys hurt you?
That kid was abused. You can tell, you can always tell.
We have rules.
Fuck your rules. I fight for what's right, and sometimes you gotta fight dirty.
This is the guy who has always played by his own rules and above all else deeply cared about his own people. The last time we saw him on screen, he had found his found family of misfits and had grown the most a character like him possibly can to be okay with being constantly fucked over. Wade in this movie essentially learns the exact same thing he did in Deadpool 2. How to be okay being a misfit, how to find himself a brotherhood in a loner who believes he failed his family, how to find purpose in being the one that brings the outsiders together. Only this time it has the Disney approved sticker right on top of it, so it's canon, so it matters.
So I understand I played a really long part of his video without commentating on anything, but that's because this man just draws out his sentences in the most annoying way possible to get to the damn point. But I think basically the fundamental points he makes within that 4 minutes comes down to two things. One, he thinks that it doesn't make sense that Deadpool is upset at not being able to join the Avengers or X-Men, and that he loses Vanessa over this, because this is the same guy that used to say fuck the X-Men because Deadpool fights for what he thinks is right. And the second point being, he thinks that this movie is just a retread of Deadpool 2. And to tackle both of these points, I'm going to explain what Deadpool's arc actually is in Deadpool 2, and then explain what his character arc is in Deadpool 3. Because not only does it show why it's a surface level comparison that HiTop makes, but it also shows that HiTop doesn't really understand Deadpool Deadpool's character as well as he thinks he does. The difference between his arc in Deadpool 3 and Deadpool 2 is actually very Why do you talk like that, HiTop? It's so goddamn annoying. He wants a family. He wants to matter. Anyways, the difference between his arc in Deadpool 3 and Deadpool 2 is actually very simple to understand. In Deadpool 2, Wade starts out the movie a bit worried about having a kid with Vanessa because he always viewed family as a bad thing due to his traumatic childhood. And after Vanessa dies, Wade becomes suicidal, ruining his life and eventually getting arrested for saving a kid who was abused like him. This leads to him getting put in prison with a mutant gene deactivator, and Wade can finally get what he wants and die of the cancer that's in his body. And by consequence of pushing Russell away and appearing to Russell that he doesn't care what happens to him, this causes Russell to start down a dark path that made him kill Cable's kid in the future. He has another conversation with Vanessa and sees that what she's saying in order for him to help himself is to help the kid who's similar to him. And so Deadpool spends the rest of the movie trying to atone for his mistakes and help Russell, and explain to him that he fucked up earlier. This ends with Wade sacrificing himself for Russell as he's ready to die, because he still kinda wants to die and be with Vanessa, but this time it's for the right reason and in the right way. Cable sacrifices his life in the future with his family, and saves Deadpool's life because Deadpool showed him that there can be another way.
Is there a knife in my dick?
There's a knife in your dick.
And by the end, to wrap up his character arc, he accepts X-Force as a family fully and accepts the concept of family fully, and stops trying to off himself to continue living on and not waste Cable's sacrifice.
You're a superhero now, Bubba. That's why it's high time that you had a super suit. This one is yours. Look, family is not an F word, all right? There's one out there for you. Just keep looking. Okay.
And this perfectly leads into his character arc for Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool wants to be an Avenger because he feels like nothing he's doing in his world really matters. Like he's not doing enough work to really be making a difference. And because of this, he's going through a midlife crisis. He tells Happy that he wants to be an Avenger because he needs it in his life right now. Happy declines Deadpool the chance to be an Avenger because the Avengers don't do the job because they need it, they do the job because people need them. It has a similar sentiment to what Vanessa told him in Deadpool 2 about Wade's heart not being in the right place. Happy tells Wade that not everyone in the world is the world-saving type, and that he should just find his place and that will keep him happy. As Deadpool is at work 6 years later, you can tell that he really hates his job, and Peter tries to help him through this midlife crisis by getting him back in the saddle and getting him back to Deadpool. But Wade is too depressed to continue being Deadpool. He talks to Vanessa at his birthday party in a really awkward conversation, asking if she's seeing anyone right now. Vanessa tells him that she is, and after this you can see Wade kinda get really upset over this. As he talks to everyone around the table, lying to them, saying he's the happiest he's ever been right now. Wade then gets kidnapped by the TVA and he's given the chance to do something big that really matters, the thing he's wanted for years. And from a metatextual standpoint, this also touches on how Deadpool and the Fox universe would have been dead if Disney and Fox never did the merger, and how a lot of characters in that universe kinda got left in the dust, which means Deadpool would have probably not gotten any more movies for a long time. And I like how Deadpool earlier in the movie gets jealous that Logan was the anchor being of his universe, because it falls very much in line with what Deadpool wants in the movie, and that's to matter and leave a big impact like the Wolverine of his universe did. Anyways, the job from Paradox isn't exactly what he thinks it is. He's given an ultimatum to either go back to his universe and spend the rest of his days as he was, and Paradox will just destroy his timeline eventually, or he can join the sacred timeline and do what he's wanted for all these years. The opportunity to do something that really matters on a big scale. And after a bit, Deadpool and Wolverine get captured by Cassandra Nova. She takes a look inside Wade's head, and we see how him and Vanessa's relationship ended off on a poor note. Not because there was necessarily anything wrong with them being together, but because Deadpool's insecurity of wanting to matter and be remembered as someone who made a big impact saving people in a big way caused him to project untrue feelings into his own head about how he thinks Vanessa feels about him, after Wade asked Vanessa to just admit he's a loser. But Wade also won't really open up to Vanessa about how he truly feels. He's just projecting onto her. HiTop actually mentions something that I really like in the writing, and he frames it as a bad thing when it's actually really interesting. And it's the fact that Vanessa was the one who got Deadpool to actually be a better hero in Deadpool 2. She was the reason he stopped throwing his life away to help Russell change for the better. And ironically, this sentiment that she put into Deadpool caused him to be insecure about how she sees him as a person and a hero, which is what formed the rift in their relationship. And while there are more scenes I could go over that add to Deadpool's character arc in the movie, what ultimately matters for this response video is how Deadpool progresses as a character by the end of it. Wade is told by Paradox that one of them is going to have to sacrifice themselves to stop Cassandra Nova, and what Deadpool does is try to save Wolverine and sacrifice himself, not just just to save Logan, but also to save his entire universe. And this time, he's not motivated to do this because he needs it, but because his world needs it. And he overcomes his insecurity of not being a good enough hero by being content that he doesn't have to be someone like the Avengers. And HiTop says,
Wade in this movie essentially learns the exact same thing he did in Deadpool 2. How to be okay being a misfit, how to find himself a brotherhood in a loner who believes he failed his family, how to find purpose in being the one that brings the outsiders together. Only this time it has the Disney approved sticker right on top of it.
But I'd actually argue that none of those things are actually lessons learned. They're more so things that just kind of happened along the way. I feel like what I explained earlier about his arc in Deadpool 2 is what he actually learned and how he actually grew as a person. And Deadpool 3 was actually the movie that taught him that doing things like bringing a team of misfits together, or doing stuff like Wolverine changing as a person because of him, or the situation that he put him into, or things that he's done in the past, those things are good enough and they do matter, even if it's on a smaller scale, or even if you don't get the same attention for it like someone like Logan of his universe or the Avengers, and he overcomes his insecurity of not being a good enough hero and his want to matter because of this. And it's also a good criticism of how Marvel nowadays pretty much treats anything that's not in the MCU as if it doesn't matter. So I think it not only works with Deadpool's character and what was set up in Deadpool 2, but it also works really well on a metatextual level. I think Deadpool 3 combines the best aspects and themes of the previous movies, Deadpool 1 with Wade overcoming his insecurity of his mutation to get back to the only girl he's ever loved, and Deadpool 2 having him progress as a hero and progressing his idea and stance on family. It combines the best aspects and themes of those movies, and it allows Deadpool to grow as a person in a similar but still different way. And I feel like that's a good thing for a sequel to do because it, keeps the character close to what you know they're supposed to be. Or long story short, it keeps them more consistent. A really good example I can use for this is a franchise that HiTop sucks the skin off of, the Raimi movies. In Spider-Man 1, Peter learns what responsibility is and why responsibility is important. In Spider-Man 2, he essentially learns a very similar lesson, but it expands upon that lesson that he learned in Spider-Man 1. And he grows as a character in a similar but different way. And before I keep letting his video play, there's another point that I want to tackle within that section of the video. He says it's a problem for Deadpool to think Captain America is cool or the Avengers are cool by comparing it to Deadpool before he developed as a character. The whole reason he even wants to join the Avengers is because of the development he got in Deadpool 2 and the sentiment of heroism that Vanessa put into him in that movie. And the Captain America part would be even more understandable as to why Deadpool likes him so much, because just like Deadpool, Cap fights for what he believes is right even when people disagree with him.
Deadpool can make all the jokes roast how stale and uninvested so many audience members are these days, but when the foundation of his journey in the film starts with him being rejected by Happy Hogan, the storytellers are kind of telling us all we need to know.
I'm sorry, what is this point? Like, I actually don't understand it. How does Deadpool getting rejected the chance to join the Avengers contradict these meta jokes? You say he makes jokes about how the audience members are uninvested, but again, how does him getting rejected joining the Avengers even contradict that joke? But I guess it's just telling the audience members all they need to know.
You can criticize something, be the supposed outsider, but deep down, you must have that deep desire to be a part of it. You must still support it in order to be allowed to grow, to live within it. It's fucking bleak, man.
Again, I'm still not following this point or the problem with it, at all. What is the problem with criticizing something you're a part of, or even want to be a part of? Especially if you want that thing to be or do better. For example, with this movie, if you think a movie trope is frequently poorly executed or done in a shallow way, like the multiverse, for example, and this movie takes that trope and actually makes it work narratively, then I do not see the problem with them doing what they're doing.
By trying not to disrespect Logan, you end up disrespecting Logan. Hugh Jackman just clearly wanted to make a movie with his friend and get paid millions upon millions of dollars to do it. And he's good as always. He's not phoning it in. Even if the script itself justifies the exact reasoning as to why there was absolutely no story left to tell with his Wolverine, even if they say this isn't his Wolverine. That's the distinction they make. It's not the Logan that died in Logan. The movie, the characters make it so guiltily clear that they are not trying to tarnish what James Mangold and Hugh Jackman did. Half the jokes and lines about it feel like a direct apology to James Mangold. Sorry, buddy, we promise we aren't trying to fuck up your movie. Yet, if I was James Mangold and I'm sitting in that theater opening night and see the most tender, emotional moment of my film be clipped on the TV screen to the fucking TVA while goofy comedic extra number 5 sheds a prideful tear. We did it, Joe. I would seppuku myself with a fucking pointed horn of a popcorn tin. I would take that adamantium bullet and send it flying straight to the back of my skull.
So you're deadass saying they're disrespecting Logan by having the clip of his death playing as pretty much all the characters in the room are sitting there respecting his sacrifice. And Wade is the only person in the room not being very respectful, which makes sense for his character right now. And he is literally being laughed at by the other characters in the room because they think the Logan of his universe is so much better. If anything in that scene, they're disrespecting Deadpool more than they are Logan. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
But behind all the apologies and universe anchor nonsense, this is the same Logan, except in a costume. I mean, seriously, think about it. This Logan lives in a universe where he feels somewhat responsible for killing the X-Men. But in Logan, the film, Charles killed the X-Men.
So the way you say they are the same is by starting off the comparison with the difference in their life experiences. Okay.
In Deadpool and Wolverine, he was busy getting drunk at the bar when the humans did it. Either way, we are dealing with a loner alcoholic who let his family down and is spending his days wasting away behind the bottle waiting for death. It's like looking in a mirror. He even goes through the exact same arc, except it's like the fucking Cliff Notes version. Here's a Wolverine who fought with the X-Men, lost to the X-Men, and is now a cynical drunk. He no longer wants to help anybody for fear that he will hurt them as he has so many others. He finds purpose when someone also experimented on and abused comes into his life, needing his help in saving the few people this lost soul can find family in. It's a reluctant pairing at first, until a tender moment forces self-reflection and self-realization that even if maybe you failed, even if you will always view yourself as that monster, you can still use what little time you have left to help give those who once believed in you a bit of hope. He rediscovers what being an X-Men has meant all along. I don't know how to break this to you, but it's the exact same arc, condensed, stripped of all the nuance, but sugar-coated with a colorful costume. And yeah, some of it works, some of it feels fresh because Hugh Jackman's a great actor and always delivers in the intensity and the emotion. But by working so hard to not disrespect the Logan that we grew up with, the Logan that died, they end up completely and utterly wasting the character.
Now on the surface, the way HiTop described the comparison may sound like these two are the exact same, but there's multiple parts to this that I want to break down. Let's start with the core differences between this Wolverine and the Wolverine from Logan. But to do that, let's first start with his character arc in Logan versus his character arc in The Wolverine, because these two movies also have similar character journeys for Logan that you could also make a surface level comparison to, just like HiTop did. And shout out to Stir for help with this. Logan's arc in The Wolverine is him realizing that he has always found himself in a position to be a soldier or a hero, and moving past the pain of Jean, but he comes to the conclusion that to do good and move past her, the cost he's gonna have to take is that he can't have peace or settle down. In Logan, he is coming to terms with the fact that he is going to die. He has again lost everyone around him and is still holding on to the idea that he can't rest and have people that care and love him without losing them. Until he meets Laura, someone who is very much like him to the point that she could go down the same path as him. A soldier with no one to love really, and just to be, to some extent, a killer and ultimately a monster without guidance or without a family. So in his last-ditch effort, through the experiences he went through, with losing Charles and seeing his clone, he protects her like the intrinsic fight for good that has always been within him. But now, he does it so that he can come to peace, and give his daughter a chance to love and have a family, to live and be better than him, redeeming himself fully and finally being able to rest with his heart in his hand. Now with that established, let's explain the difference between these two Logans. This Wolverine never got the chance to become the Wolverine that we see in X-Men 1 through 3 of the Fox universe. He lived at the X-Mansion, yes, but he never fully embraced them as his family or changed much for the better like that Logan did. This Wolverine left the X-Mansion for one night to go get drunk and came home to his entire family being murdered. And he feels regret for this because he feels as though he would have never been out drinking if he had just changed for the better and allowed the X-Men in as a family fully. But after after this happens, he went on a rampage killing both innocent and non-innocent people, which the movie implies is the cause for the entire world turning against mutants. Already alone, we have a major difference between the internal conflict of these characters, and this isn't even accounting for the other aspect of the movie, being Cassandra Nova, who is the opposite of Charles Xavier. And while she tries to bring the animal out of Logan, he not only develops by not killing her, but him trying to redeem her also parallels how Charles tried to help him. Just that alone, we have a massive difference between these two characters and what the movie does with them. Another big difference is the suit that Wolverine wears in this movie. He wears this suit as a reminder for what he lost and what this suit means to him. It means being an X-Men and standing for what they did, which really shows how even with all of this that happened in his life, he still has a bit of hope. He may be drinking his life away, but he's not necessarily suicidal like Logan was in the 2017 movie. Then finally, another big difference between these two is that one has a tragic ending where he dies sacrificing himself so that Laura can live on and live a life where she won't end up like Logan. But in Deadpool and Wolverine, these two coming together and saving each other allows both of them to continue living on, this time on a more hopeful note. A chance for both Wade and Logan to start over, ending the movie as better people. And Wade brings Logan into a family again so that he can start over with a good support system. And with those points laid out, I now want to talk about why the similarities the characters share not only make sense for what this movie is going for, but also because it's an adaptation of a character, so you would want similar traits to the character. Another thing I want to pick at is this comparison between Wade and Laura.
He finds purpose when someone also experimented on and abused comes into his life, needing his help in saving the few people this lost soul can find family in. It's a reluctant pairing at first until a tender moment forces self-reflection and self-realization that even if maybe you failed, even if you will always view yourself as that monster, you can still use what little time you have left to help give those who once believed in you a bit of hope.
This comparison is really disingenuous because with Deadpool and Wolverine, there's no element of Logan making a sacrifice so that Wade doesn't end up being as bad as a person he is, like it is with Laura. And in Logan, his mission was to get Laura to the border with her family to keep living on with them, but the start of that mission was to save Laura, not to save her family, or even reunite her with their family. If anything, the mutant kids that Logan saved wouldn't have even gotten into that fight if Logan never showed up with Laura at the end of the movie. And Wolverine's character arc and how he even reaches that point to helping Wade is different than it is with Laura. In Logan, he doesn't want to help Laura because of what I already explained when going through the character arc of Logan, so I doubt you want to hear me repeat myself. But Wolverine's connection to helping Wade save his world and family when Logan couldn't, that's just blatantly not the same reason he helps Laura, nor is it the thing that Laura needs help with. And also, another difference is that HiTop says at the end of the 2017 movie, Logan rediscovers what being an X-Men meant all along, but that's just not even what it is, as I've already explained. And another thing that's weird to me about HiTop comparing these two is the fact that this is something that has been done for a long time in the space of comic book media. Again, we don't criticize the first two Raimi movies for adapting character arcs Peter Parker already learned in the comics. We don't call those movies disrespectful to Spider-Man or say Raimi killed Spider-Man. We don't say Spider-Man 1 and 2 are the same movies just because we can compare them on a surface level and make them seem like they're the same thing. What Peter ultimately learns in both movies is the importance of responsibility, but obviously if you actually watch the movies, you see how differently it's executed. And also, this part of what he says,
you can still use what little time you have left to help give those who once believed in you a bit of hope.
Yeah, this is just a straight up lie. The Logan in Deadpool and Wolverine doesn't have what little time he has left. He's not dying. And then the final thing I want to talk about is how he says it's the same arc without the nuance of Logan. Now, I've already gone over the differences of these two Logans, but as far as one being better than the other, yes, I agree Logan is a better movie, and a better movie for Wolverine's character. But I would hope it is because in that movie, Logan is the primary focus of that movie, so of course you would have more time for his character.
Quick question, sorry. Why is Laura here? I mean, on a thematic, emotional level, sure, you need that third act emotional push, but seeing that little tormented and tortured violent girl who had that underlying vulnerability, seeing her all grown up to be a generic multiverse outsider, a Marvel Studios caricature who wears the same glasses during a pop song superhero walk, a caricature that has no purpose other than to give the lead superhero an emotional speech? I don't know, man. That's about the most disrespectful, disingenuous, distasteful continuation you could have thought of. And I really doubt that was the point. I don't think any of them had intended for that to play that way, and I'm sure it won't play that way to a lot of audience members. But like, what?
I can't do this.
If the whole movie was about her getting to finally spend time with her dead father, sure, I guess.
So it's disrespectful to have Laura explain to the version of Wolverine that has almost no hope left that he is a hero, that another version of himself was kind of similar to him, and he still pulled through to show up when it mattered the most, and gave her a chance to have a life. It's disrespectful to have her motivate Wolverine to grow as a person and put more hope in himself. Like, I'm sorry, but what the fuck is that point? You say she's a generic multiversal outsider or whatever, but on a thematic level, this also connects to something that I brought up earlier about how the movie doesn't end on a tragic note like Logan did. Logan developing as a character not only helps Wade realize that doing things like saving these outsiders and bringing them together as a family in the end is good enough, but it also allows him to save another version or the same version of Laura that another Logan saved who ended up in the void. And he allows this Laura yet another chance to continue living a better life. And on a more hopeful note as well. This time she gets to continue living on with a version of Logan, her father, and a new family. And another point I've seen others bring up is, oh, Logan's sacrifice means nothing now if Laura just ends up in the void. But I have to question, how would Wolverine's sacrifice be meaningless now? Even Laura herself says, I got to grow up because of you. I got to live because of you. By this logic, if someone sacrifices themselves to save someone and that person they saved dies in the next 5 years, then that sacrifice means nothing, even though the person that they saved got to continue living for a long time because of that sacrifice. And if anything, this movie actually makes Logan's sacrifice more impactful because now, not only does Laura eventually get to grow up with another version of himself, but also, this contributes to saving the entire fucking multiverse.
If she didn't just pop back up at the end out of the blue somehow in Wade Wilson's apartment petting Dogpool alongside not her dad but still her dad, even though her dad is probably still alive, right? Like, she's from the future. Technically Logan isn't dead yet, so there are two Logans running around in Wade's universe at the point we end the story on, right? Wouldn't that cause, what the fuck have they spent like 5 movies calling it? An erection?
Incursion? Give an incursion.
Could have been one hell of an incursion.
You caused an incursion.
And look, all jokes aside, if they gave Laura's story here weight, meaning, if they didn't give us a shallow retread with a few different beats for Wolverine, I would not be questioning all the weird timeline, time travel logic. I would not be questioning all the cynical corporate choices you have to suspend your disbelief of in order to feel an ounce of emotion.
Okay, so this is just wrong on every level. 1, Wolverine is dead in Deadpool's universe already, so there wouldn't even be 2 Logans in that universe. 2, there's nothing saying that this would cause an incursion. The way the TVA works is that if something happens that's not supposed to happen, that creates another timeline. But now that the TVA doesn't prune timelines, this is a non-issue. So no, this is not a plot hole. The rest of this video, he talks about how the CGI is bad, the action looks bland, and they're disrespectful to the cameos, and the cameos have nothing to them. Yada yada yada. While I disagree with a lot of what he says in the next sections of his video, I feel like I've already done enough with this video, and I would rather end myself than continue listening to HiTop ramble in his pretentious voice. He literally sounds like a whiny child in his video that draws out every fucking sentence. Like, holy shit, it is so annoying. Deadpool used to be a passion project, but now it's just greed. Used by the big mouse because something kill me. Anyways, I only tackled that part of his video because I felt it was the only important thing to me to talk about. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you would support me on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you all for watching, and yeah.